Across Fly Fishing Podcast. I'm Matthew of castingacross.com, where I explore the quarry and culture of fly fishing. It is episode 388, Best in Show 2026. What are we talking about today? Well, we're talking about the Consumer Choice Awards from the Fly Fishing Show this year, 2026. Now, I know what some of you might be saying. This is not every product in fly fishing. This is only a small assortment of products that paid to be at a show and then were judged by a small sample size of the fly fishing public. And you're completely right. And the reality is that you can really level a similar accusation at any sort of award and even any sort of testing. Because get this, all right, a little bit of an aside, maybe even a justification or a rationale of why I'm doing this. So take a fly shop or a lab that does fly rod tests. They get every fly rod. They don't never get every fly rod, but they get 35 fly rods from across the 6 weight categories. And they take them into a lab and they test them based on their swing weight, based upon the variability of the plane that the rod moves in, by how heavy they are, by their flexibility. And then they measure that with their price point, and they come up with some sort of fancy algorithm to say this is objectively the best fly rod. Well, under those circumstances, sure, maybe across the aggregated scores of the 10 test casters, maybe. But for you, it might be the number 2 fly rod. It might be the very last fly rod. It's still going to cast, right? And it might fit your stroke and your needs. Or your fly rod might be the least expensive fly rod. To you, that's the best one out there. And so even the very objective tests still are ultimately kind of subjective when it comes to use in the field. I see awards like this as just an interesting point of data. It exposes you to new gear that was, at least to a certain amount of people, interesting enough to put their little, tap on their phone. I was going to say put their ballot in a box, but it's their tap on the phone. And now we have a list of, it looks like 35 different things across like 6 or 7 categories that are worth checking out. Does this mean that they were the best at the show? No. Does it mean that they're the best in fly fishing? I don't think so. However, they're worth looking at. So I'll give you a good example. This is not the best in show. This is simply just something that caught my eye that I don't think was at the shows I attended and participated in, which were in New Jersey and Massachusetts. And it is called the Eco Chamber Nippers by a brand called Sipping Tippet. Now, what is the Eco Chamber Nipper? It is a very simple little product. It is a pair of nippers. And you might say, oh, already this podcast, I just can't handle it. But this is what it is. It is a set of nippers that has a little compartment in it so that the tag end, the refuse end of your mono or your fluorocarbon gets stored. And then it has a way to keep it in there so it doesn't blow out when they open back up. What this means is that you don't have inches of mono and fluoro falling into the river, falling streamside, and then you can throw them away. You might say, I bet they're expensive. $35, which in the grand scheme of things is pretty reasonable for a pair of nippers that are something more than a pair of narrow clippers from CVS. So again, this is a cool product. It's innovation in a way that I think matches the talk a lot of people talk, right? If you're talking about collecting plastics, then this is a great idea. And so $35, Sipping Tippet, and all the links for all this, I'll put a link to the listing of the Fly Fishing Choice Awards at the bottom of this podcast show notes. So you can go check all this stuff out in one place. But you can certainly Google, that's what they call it, Sipping Tippet, and you'll come across these cool little nippers. All right. That's just one example of something that I didn't see at any of the shows, but now I'm looking at it. Actually, I was scrolling through their website, and one of the founders is close to where I've fished. Anyway, let's drop into the best of show. All right, and it is Scientific Angler's Magnitude Smooth Balance Taper. So if you've listened to the fly fishing content here at Casting Across for any length of time, you know that I am a sucker for really nice fly line. I like fly line that is durable. I like fly line that has a well-designed taper. Slickness is good. Slickness is important. Materials, I care about that to a certain degree. Not a huge fan of texture on my fly line, but I do like a sturdy material that's going to withstand some abuse, and I like a taper that has been built right. The line from Scientific Anglers, particularly this Magnitude balance line, is it's awesome. The way that's put together, I got a chance to play with it a little bit. It's a great fly line. It's marketed as having superior slickness and durability. And again, the slickness piece, it is what it is, but the durability is the one that I really go for. So it comes in at $150, which is not their highest end fly line, and it kind of is within that same range as some of the other premier fly line companies, high-end fly line. But if you're on the water a lot, if you want to get the absolute most out of the rod that you've already spent $800 on, then it's worth spending another $50 or $75 on a good fly line. Even for the durability alone, I would rather have a fly line that lasts me a handful of seasons and pay more money for it than replace my fly line regularly. So you're never gonna avoid the cut or the kink, but as far as just the nicks and stuff like that, the small abrasions that actually do damage to your guides also, having a good fly line matters. So again, not for everybody, but I can understand why this is something that a lot of people are interested in. All right, moving on to another kind of premier item, which is rods and reels, the Temple Fork Outfitters Dispatch Combo Kit. All right, that's a mouthful, but this follows in a line of something that a lot of manufacturers are doing, which is making their combo kits not their bottom end stuff, right? It's actually high quality stuff that's been put together. The components, rod, reel, line, and you're not getting a beginner kit. You're getting something very functional. You're getting something you can fish with, just period, or something that can be your backup. If you want to fish that fast action 6-weight for bigger flies, but then you want to have a 5-weight that can throw dries with phenomenal accuracy and touch, but you don't want to break the bank because you know that the majority of your time you'll be throwing streamers and nymphs with that stiffer 6-weight, then you can go get a combo like the Dispatch Fly Fishing Kit. Or if you say, you know what, I want this to be seamless, I want this to be relatively simple, just buy one thing and get it over with, then you can get something like this. And so I got a chance to go hands-on with both the rod and the reel. The reel is really, really impressive in my opinion. And it's cool that companies are kind of putting some marketing effort and energies behind products like this. For all the talk of everyone's trying to sell me their $1,000 fly rod. If you look at the marketing for a number of fly rods and a number of companies, these combo kits get a significant amount of energy and effort put behind them because it's what people are buying, it's what people want to use, it's what people are using. All right, moving on. So we talked about the most glamorous stuff. Let's go to what is least glamorous, however, I think is some of the most important fly fishing gear that you can buy. So this one has a premium price tag. It's a pair of wading boots, comes in at $329, so you might say, oof, I'm out. However, I just think that it's cool the way that these have been designed and built by the people at Grundens. So this is called the Rock Armor wading boot, and it looks nothing like any other wading boot that you have ever seen. It's completely rubberized from the ankle down, and that's going to give you a durable boot. What kind of drives me crazy is that, you get some toe protection. First of all, any fly fishing boot that doesn't have rubber toe protection, both for your safety and comfort, as well as the durability of that boot, is just silly, in my opinion. But the fact that sometimes the sides of these boots don't have any sort of reinforcement, or maybe it's just an extra panel of nylon, the sides of your wading boots, if you're wading in rocky streams, are going to get just as scratched up and jacked up as your toes are. So, and I would say some of my biggest injuries and nastiest painful moments wading that didn't involve falling down involved the side of my foot from the outside, on the out of my ankle or the outside of my step, getting pinched by a rock or hit by something I was stepping on or sliding into. You do not get that with the Grundon's Rock Armor wading boot. These things are reinforced. They're going to stand up to all sorts of abuse. They also are grippy, which having that latitudinal grippiness, that's not a real term, but I think you know what I mean, is really helpful. So I got to play with these a little bit at the show. I love a good wading boot. I like a wading boot that opens wide so you can slide your foot in easy. As I'm getting older, that matters a whole lot more than it used to. Zippers on waders and wading boots that you can get your neoprene booties into easy, like that's worth an extra $50 or $100 in my opinion. The traction on these things is just out of this world. You think about some of the other stuff that Grundon's makes, just all about keeping people safe and upright, and you have that in these boots. So check these out if you really, really want something that is going to be top end as far as wading boots goes. I'm actually cool with people spending a lot of money. I think about how much money I spend on my hiking boots, how much money I spend on my running shoes, how much money I spend even on my dress shoes, my cowboy boots, for goodness sake. And it's not that unreasonable to spend a couple $100 on a pair of wading boots. If that's not for you, that's all fine. That's all good. But when you put it in perspective, like you can't complain about your wading boot prices when you have no problem with buying, $500 or $600 fly rods. All right, moving on. I'm still looking at these. I left the link open for the sipping tippet thing because I just think it's cool and it's a problem that nobody else was solving. All right. Getting back to the list, the next thing that I wanted to share was the Pescador fly box. It's Fish Pond, but they own Tacky now. So what's cool about this, and I've got a few old fly boxes that do this. They have it dynamic foam is what they call it, and all it is a foam fly box with slits. So isn't that what all foam fly boxes do? Well, these are just high quality, kind of self-healing, recycled foam, which is what you want. And it is just long slits, which means that you can use it for your teeny tiny nymphs, or you can use it for your hoppers. You can use it for, a couple of streamers lined nose to tail, or you can use it for a few dozen dry flies lined nose to tail. You pick how they go in there. You pick how things line up. If you are all about order and about maximizing space, boxes like this give you a lot more options than ones that have individual slits. Now, could be splitting hairs, but if you really want to organize your fly box in a very specific way, a box like this is going to give you that option. So the medium size is kind of an all-around size. It is a clear front, which I think is awesome. I have a couple of fly boxes that don't have a viewing window, and when that happens, you end up labeling them and the whole thing, which again, we're talking about things that are a very small deal, but it's nice to have a clear fly box. This one is waterproof, which I have I'm kind of sour on waterproof fly boxes. I would rather my flies be able to breathe after they get damp, but at the same time, I know some people absolutely love them. I have a couple of them. They're not my favorite fly boxes, but I do use them. That said, this seems like a cool fly box that I would absolutely use. I would just put my wet flies on my vest or on my pack until they dried off before I put them back into the Fish Pond Tacky Pescador fly box with clear dynamic foam. I think that there's something to be said for a product that has like 7 words in its title. All right, what is next? There's a lot of interesting things that we could talk about, but I'm going to talk about now is probably the most premium item that I saw at the fly fishing show. And we're talking about thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars. And this is a custom fly tying desk from Live Edge Exclusives. I think I mentioned Live Edge in a podcast that came out right after the fly fishing shows. But the gent at Live Edge, he makes everything from fly tying desks down to little charcuterie boards. And what he does is that deal where he makes like a river or a pattern in a piece of wood, and then he makes it look like a river and then covers it with a resin and seals it off. So you've probably seen things like that before. The cool thing about him is that he worked with hydrology, and so when he puts bubbles in, when he puts large rocks, small rocks in, he says that they're in the right place, and I believe him. But this is an for a fly tying desk, which is going to cost you thousands of dollars. this is an absolutely premium, high-end luxury item. But you can also get smaller pieces in the hundreds that you can use for fly tying. I talked to the guy, and he said, he's made things that are like portable, but people still want them to be cool, or they lived in their living room and they want them to be pretty. But definitely a cool product. He can put flies in stuff. He can make it so that there's holding spots for all of your whether it be a place for a wine bottle and wine glasses, or for a vise and tools. It's completely customizable. Nothing is off the shelf. So Live Edge Exclusives make some really cool high-end products for the fly fisher. All right. What do you want to hear about now? Do you want to hear about apps? Do you want to hear about nets? Do you want to hear about waders? Let's actually talk about fly rod storage. So everything has a category. I've not been saying that. I'm sorry. The Eco Chamber nippers are in the accessories under $50. The Live Edge Exclusives is in artwork. The Temple Fork Dispatch Combo Kit was in freshwater combo kit. The let's see, what else did we talk about? We talked about the Groden's Rock Armor wading boots in men's wading boots, and the Fish Pond Tacky Pescador Flybox Clear Dynamic Foam was in Flybox/storage system. Now we're talking about rooftop carrying systems, and this is actually not a rooftop carrying system. So if you're like, I'm never going to get a rooftop fly rod carrying system, then you're in luck, because what won the Consumer's Choice Awards this year in that category was the truck bed River Quiver from the folks at Riversmith. So Riversmith is one of the big names in the car top fly rod holders, but now they have one that comes with the hardware for you to mount within the truck of the bed of your truck. So they've come out with a diversity of items in that response. People saying, I don't want to keep my stuff on the top of my car where people know where I'm fishing and that there's probably another fly rod in there. Very reasonable concern for people depending on where you live. But this is great if you have a truck that you don't care about people seeing it and it can be out in the open, or B, you have a cap or some sort of cover and it is as concealed as it can be. So it mounts to the side of the inside of your bed, and it's depending on if your truck has some sort of rail system or it can just be bolted to it. And so you pop down your tailgate and there is the secure lockable head where the reels are. So it's not going to be the full, 9.5 foot or 9 foot 3 inch thing. It is the size where you have to break down your rods to fit in it. But again, way better than leaving your rods rigged up, hanging out the back of your pickup truck, or sticking out the back window of your cab. This is a great way to keep things safe. As things bounce around, your reel's not going to get scratched up as it bounces against other reels or other stuff. $500, which again, if you are fishing a lot, then that's the kind of thing, the kind of convenience that you want. You're probably paying that much for your cooler, so why not pay that much for your rod storage? Okay, gonna put a pin in it there, but I would encourage you to check it out. I'll put that link down below. That's my recommendation this week, so not to spoil anything. But see what's there. See if something tickles your fancy. And again, as cool as the rods are, like for example, in the two-handed spay category, Sage, their R8 spay rod is $1,400. That's pretty snazzy, right? But I'm gonna go look at that Sipping Tippet company a little bit more after talking about it, because it's just a cool thing. So again, this is not about spending $1 million. It's about just what's interesting, what's new. So I'd encourage you to check that out, see if something may fit your fly fishing needs, or use this as a gift-giving guide for the fly fisher in your life. Find something that's new that they might not have yet, and then go ahead and pick them up a new boat, right? There's the boat winner was the smooth $6,500 NRS Orvis Edition raft. So, if a special person in your life deserves it, then pick that up for them. All right. Well, what came out on Casting Across this week? Monday, it was Rusty Flybox, Pretentious. So if you listened to last week's podcast about elitism, you know that I kind of have this perspective that what we think of as the fly fishing elitist is no longer the fly fishing elitist. It's actually the dirtbag, trout bum, all about authenticity guy who is now the fly fishing elitist. And so I had an article listing 3 other articles about kind of pretentiousness in fly fishing. Some of them are tongue-in-cheek, some of them are more serious, but they're all worth reading, in my humble opinion. Wednesday's article was called Video Guide Stories, in which I show and tell Real Salty and Really by guide and author Ryan Johnston. And go watch the video. It's on YouTube. It's on the website. It's on social media. But the takeaway is that these stories are the kind of stories that you want to hear as you are fishing with a guide, as you're, eating lunch. You want to hear some of the most amazing, remarkable things that they've experienced. And so to get books filled with these things are kind of fun. So I mentioned that, it's not high literature. It's not the kind of thing that you're going to sit down and really think a whole lot about. They're there for fun. So you can check those out over at Casting Across. This week's recommendation on the podcast, as promised, is the full list of the Consumer Choice Awards from the Fly Fishing Show. So definitely check those out and then go ahead to a fly shop. If something's interesting to you, then go to a fly shop that carries it. Virtually every brand out there has a list of retailers, and go say, hey, I heard about this product. What do you think about it? Can I play with it? Here, I brought my reel. Can I go cast a rod? I brought my rod. Can I put a reel on it and see how it feels? Go and do that if you need something, or if you're just curious, and then, buy a handful of flies. But, it's not about buying things, but the things are kind of what go into the whole process. So again, I'm not advocating spending a ton of money, but if it's something you need or something you want, then maybe this will give you a nudge in the right direction of where to look. Thanks for listening to the Casting Across Fly Fishing podcast. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app, rate the podcasts in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Then head over to castingacross.com for 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.